Very good. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Nishnawbe, Ottawa, and Mississauga peoples. Number 2, confirmation of the agenda, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accepts the agenda for March 27th, 2023, budget meeting as presented. I have a mover. Councillor Whitfield, Councillor Wright, all in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interests? Seeing none. Finance? Okay, where'd it go? Okay. I just like to be in my talk.
Do the BIA stuff first.
Okay, Finance 2023-09, Wingham and Blythe Business Improvement Area 2023 budget approvals. Are there any questions? Seeing none, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the Director of Finance Treasurer dated March 27th, 2023 regarding the 2023 Blythe and Wingham Business Improvement Area budgets approvals for information purposes. And further that, the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts the 2023 Wingham and Blythe BIA budgets as presented. And further that, Council directs staff to incorporate the Wingham BIA and the Blythe BIA levy amounts in the 2023 Township of North Huron final budget and 2023 tax levy. May I have a mover? Deputy Reeve Faulkner, Councillor McBurney, all in favor? Carried. I'd like to just begin, welcome each one to our 2023 budget meeting. Our first meeting was December 16th, and we had a 13.4% tax increase. Our next meeting was January 12th, 20.65% tax increase. Causing the main portion of this increase was fire cylinders. They had reached the end of their lifespan. It is unfortunate we were not aware of this sooner, so we could have been preparing for this necessary upgrades ahead of time. Staff brought forward some recommendations on how we could scale back the budget. From the feedback we had received from the public and from the council input, it is clear that we needed to take a different approach in the way we provide the services that the people have come to expect. Council asked staff to bring back a budget with a 6 to 8% increase, and what we are being presented with this evening has come to us. This is where we are now for our discussion on this current draft. We must remind ourselves that we are here to make the best decisions we can for all of North Huron. We are going to have varying opinions on how we address the draft budget. Let's keep our discussion positive and productive as we determine the level of services we need and how to best provide them. Some of the items in the draft are proposed to be significantly funded from reserves. As we are aware that our asset management plan identifies significant infrastructure needs in the future, we need to be given consideration on how to be reasonable with this current budget so as not to put undue pressure on future budgets. Thank you. Now I'll ask CAO Evans for a report, please.
Thanks, Reeve Heffer. So I'm actually just going to add to the Reeve's comments here. So as Reeve has indicated, at the January 12th budget meeting, Council expressed support in principle with a 6 to 8% budget increase, and staff have worked hard to meet this goal. Council has been successful with reducing costs. And just to use a past example in terms of policing, in 2022, which was last year, the township's policing costs were approximately $1.6 million. And in the draft 2023 budget, this cost has been reduced to $900,000 or a $700,000 savings. So applaud council with respect to that initiative. But this reduction in terms of the savings that council realized is a result of providing that service differently, which the Reeve has already spoken to. The service delivery review that was completed by KPMG back in 2020 indicates that the township has the highest level of residential taxation per household, and the report states this is attributable to the number and types of municipal facilities and services operated and managed by the township. As directed by council, staff reviewed the reserves and reserve funds, and the draft 2023 budget includes transferring funds from reserves to complete some projects in 2023. I just would like to caution that this approach is not sustainable. The township's reserves will slowly be depleted if we continue this trend. The township strategic plan expires at the end of this year, and there are funds in the draft 2023 budget for the development of a new strategic plan. Strategic plans provide a framework, set the stage for future decision-making, establish priorities, and provide direction regarding the allocation of the township's existing resources. Through the strategic planning process, council, staff, and the public come together to discuss what we like and value in the township and identify what we would like to change and/or improve. It is expected this conversation will begin later this year, as early as June, and in advance of the next budget process. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to Reeve Heffer to invite Director Towns forward to walk you through this year's budget. It is staff's hope that the 2023 budget will be satisfactory to council and that council will adopt the budget in principle and direct for the statutory public meeting to be scheduled for next Monday, April the 3rd at 6 o'clock. So I'll turn back over to you.
Thank you, CAO Evans. At this time, I'll turn the meeting over to Director Chris Towns.
All right, thank you, Reeve. Through you, Reeve, to council. You've all been provided with the line-by-line operating and capital requests for the current 2023 operating year. We know most of you have had an opportunity to review them in great detail, and some questions have been asked. Please note that SMT met this afternoon, and it was discovered that not all salaries and benefits were captured under parks and arenas. So from what was delivered in your package on Thursday, there's been an increase of approximately $180,000 in salaries plus benefits, which are not included in the original package. However, they are included in this slide deck for the visual with the numbers. So we're going to go back to December 16th. Well, you're not seeing the slide deck. Hang on. Why is it not going, Carside? There we go. All right, so we'll go back to December 16th when staff presented a budget proposed levy increase of 13.4%. At this meeting, council granted pre-approval budget for continued implementation of records management and the continuation of website services. Council also directed staff to prepare a follow-up report for the next budget meeting identifying discretionary services and opportunities to reduce the impact of the 2023 budget to allow for better maintenance of township infrastructure. At that meeting, council we prepared a follow-up meeting for January 12th, 2023. On January 12th, staff presented a revised proposed levy increase of 20.65%. As Reeve Heffer explained, that was largely due to $450,000 request for SCBA replacement and some additional costs that were associated with the proposed relocation of the museum. And at that time, our budgets were reflective somewhat of some more accurate year-end actuals. At this same council meeting, council granted pre-budget approval for the Wingham Fire Hall washroom renovation project and was in receipt of CAO 2023-01 Service Delivery Review of Discretionary and Non-Discretionary Services. As a result of this report, and in an effort to reduce the impact of the 2023 budget, council directed staff as follows. Seek third party to be responsible for the operation of the Blythe campground, including the assumption of operating gains and/or losses. Request for additional funds from the county for the delivery of library and childcare services. Reduce the township's contribution to the Blythe Center for the Arts from $15,000 to $5,000. And direct a meeting with the Belgrave Community Center Board to discuss the terms and conditions of the Belgrave Community Center Board agreement and report back to council. Issue a request for proposal for cemetery grass cutting and trimming for the 2023 season. Investigate the financial impacts of a potential closure of the Blythe and District Community Center from April 1st to August 31st annually. Issue a request for proposal to potentially lease the space and equipment for the fitness center services. Present a report containing a cost-revenue analysis for all recreation programs and facilities. Present a report regarding level of service related to arenas. Present a report regarding financing options to reduce the impact of the 2023 budget through the use of reserves. Explore the potential of third party to provide recreational services at the arena and report back to Blythe Arena and report back to council. So council was presented with a number of reports for consideration, and council directed the following. Reduce the township's contribution to the Blythe Center of the Arts marketing from $15,000 to $5,000. Through the awarding of cemetery grass trimming to a third party, a new zero-turn mower in the tune of $23,000 was removed from the 2023 capital budget. And this decision also allows for the redeployment of existing staff to other township priorities. At the January 16th, 2023 budget meeting, council directed for the discontinuation of museum services and termination of the museum relocation project. Authorized for the consolidation and use of reserves, staff report FIN 2023-04 to reduce the impact of the 2023 budget, including the use of reserves to finance internal debt, which should be noted as a one-time opportunity. In addition, financing of the internal debt from reserves resulted in a savings of $139,800 for the 2023 operating budget. And an additional $51,077 was transferred from reserves to reduce 2023 operating budget as follows. $7,360 to cover costs for physician recruitment, $24,141 to offset the members of council operating, $10,275 to net zero our chief building officials budget, and $78,917 to net zero the museum deaccessioning operating budget for the year 2023. And additionally, $250,000 from the asset management reserve has been allocated to the demolition of the former Blythe Fire Hall and Public Works buildings. In addition, the Director of Finance and the Chief Treasurer and the Chief Administrative Officer met independently with members of the senior management team to review and discuss possible discrepancies within their respective budgets. This review included, and was not limited to, comparing previous year budgeted amounts to year-end actuals, reviewing wants versus needs, encouraging responsible spending, reviewing operational plans and requirements for 2023, reviewing current and future capital requirements, and looking for efficiencies within respective operations. At the January 12th budget meeting, council expressed a desirable levy increase of 6 to 8%. At that time, in order to achieve this desired levy, the 2023 budget needed to be reduced by approximately $858,000. We're coming to you today with this 2023 budget, which has been reduced $916,592,000 with minimal impact on services. So the below chart, you've all had an opportunity to look at. This one is slightly revised due to the findings this afternoon, but here are the variances between January 16th meeting and the March 27th meeting, showing where the $916,592 variance came from. So what are responsible for these impacts? Well, under the heading of general government, we transferred approximately $31,000 from reserves to fund the musician recruitment committee and the members of council budget. $59,000 of modernization funds have been used to offset modernization project costs and the asset management coordinator's wages, which is a contract position. And administration has reduced the IT budget by $25,000. Under protection to persons, adjustments were made to align expenses with the fire sharing agreements. And previously mentioned, transferred $10,275,000 from the Building Code Act reserves to net zero the Chief Building Official Officer's budget. Under Transportation Services, in the first two drafts of the 2023 budget, the calcium application was not included, so that there's an impact there. And reductions were made based on 2022 actuals and projected 2023 operational requirements. As for environmental services, reductions were made based on 22 actuals and projected 2023 operational requirements. Under health services, contracted cemetery grass cutting and removed the zero-turn mower from the capital purchase of $23,000. Under social and family services, the revenues were updated to align with the actual funding sources. And again, reductions were made based on 22 actuals and projected 2023 operational requirements. Under recreation and culture, reductions were made based on 2022 actuals and projected 2023 operational requirements. Under planning and development, the reduced contribution to the Blythe Center of the Arts from $15,000 to $5,000. And economic development staff reduced their budget by an additional $40,000. So for a capital cost update, there was transferred $250,000 from the Asset Management Reserve Fund to fund the Blythe Fire Hall and Public Work demolitions. Reduced the funds allocated for the Council Chambers relocation project and transferred an additional $100,000 from reserves. We eliminated the zero-turn mower. As a result of a new budget estimate, increased available funds for the Blythe brine pump increased by $30,000. We included $300,000 for the Moncrief Roadworks. And please, within the document you had, refer to page 54 of attachment FIN 2023-10, draft version 3 operating and capital budget for a full listing of all the proposed capital projects. This slide here just highlights some of the changes between the last two meetings. So as we're sitting here today, we are seeking $141,052 more than last year, with a 2023 proposed tax or levy increase of 7.09%. As you can see in the chart below, we're still dealing with the first year with the policing model, so there's going to be some variance, a one-time makeup period before these will equalize. So here's what that would look like. Currently, for the average home in Wingham, average assessment $199,700, looking at a $22.94 a month decrease. For Blythe, $27.34 a month increase, and for East Wawanosh, $40.87 per month, as proposed today. So there you have several attachments within your package. The draft V3 operating and capital budget. This document provides a line-by-line of all revenues and expenses by each department. You received a taxation capital, and this document provides detailed information, several of them, provides detailed information relating to each capital funding request for projects. Public Works and Facilities projected capital 2023 to 2026 for future information. Tax examples for council. This document shows the impact of various assessed properties with the proposed tax rate. Your user pay operating and capital budgets. This document contains, again, a line-by-line description of all user pay revenues and expenses. You have a wastewater capital document, and this document provides all detailed information relating to each wastewater-related capital funding project request, and the same for the wastewater capital requests. So, as we move forward for 2023, moving into 2024 and future years, Council and staff need to identify and achieve efficiencies, seek cost-saving opportunities, be fiscally responsible, continue assessing service levels, continue investigating alternative service delivery models, review the cost of service delivery, review staffing levels, and redeploy to maximize available staff resources, evaluate wants versus needs, plan for future capital requirements, increase future capital spending, and reduce operational costs. So the next steps, if council is satisfied, the next step would be for council to adopt the 2023 budget in principle, and for the statutory public meeting to be held for Monday, April 3rd at 6 p.m. And if council is not satisfied, staff need direction on the changes to be made. The scope of the changes may or may not require another budget meeting. So going from there, I'll let council ask any questions about anything that they have found within the operating budget with their respective departments.
Thank you very much, Director Towns. So at this time, I'd take questions from the council. This might give you just a half a minute. I'll just take your hands as you show. Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Go ahead.
Yeah, might as well start the show. Yeah, there was a lot of hard work there. I give you credit for that, Director Towns. Now, I was concerned, I went through every budget. That's why I wanted the line by line. I want the weeds, okay? Don't say that again. 'Cause being in the weeds is important because you find mistakes or discrepancies, and I have a whole list.
Okay.
Some of them were taken up with questions that Dwayne answered. So now I'm confused because I can't, it's not in here. I can't go back and see, so I may repeat something that was asked. So before I go there, now this $500,000 cut, the original one that you did
Okay.
from rec. I went through all the budgets, and most of my discrepancies are obviously in rec. And I guess my big concern is, like you said, that it wasn't going to affect operations or services. I have a hard time with that one. And anyways, were you working with the rec director as you did that? Was it vetted? Does she have, sorry, not she, did the director, Lutenberger, did she give comment to say, yes, that works, no, that doesn't?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer, on March 6th, Director Lutenberger, the Chief Administrative Officer Evans, and myself met, along with another staff member, and there were some changes, some recommendations, some consultation, and at the end of it, it seemed to be, there was a consensus. Unfortunately, today it was brought to my attention that I had missed somehow through this process. Some salaries were not fully allocated, which I had represented, and they are now included.
See, I saw all those. I
Yeah,
was going to bring them up tonight.
Yeah, so that information came late this afternoon and has been incorporated in what was just presented to you.
Yeah. I guess I'm still concerned that it's going to work, because my worry is, like, that's a huge cut from a department. And if, okay, things go humming along through the year, and then we find out that bills can't be paid by the end of the year, and it's because the budget's too low in certain areas. Okay, I know whose name's on it. It's going to be Director Lutenberg's name on it. So then it becomes her fault. And that wouldn't be fair if, when the budget is, like, she presented obviously a budgets to you, obviously, and then somehow magically it was less, you dropped it by 500,000-ish. And I'm really worried that at the end of the year, there could be a discrepancy in, in what can be paid and what can't be, and I'm worried at that point, and I don't want Director Lutenberger to be at fault for something like that, when it's pretty easy for us to see that, you know, wages weren't high enough, and I'm seeing other things. Registrations should have been higher because things are improving after COVID, and I'm not seeing the increase. And that's just another example. Okay.
Okay, through you, Reeve, to you, Councillor Palmer. Up until today, late this afternoon, after our meeting with what was compiled and what was presented and what was published live, up until late this afternoon, there were no further concerns addressed to myself or CAO Evans as far as I'm aware of.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Director Towns. Is there anything else, Councillor Palmer, or have you gone?
Oh, geez, yeah. But
Okay.
let other people speak.
Just wonder if anybody had their hand on this side. I was looking the other way, sorry. Okay, Councillor Wright, go ahead.
Yeah, just one of the large things, I, like, are all the, on all the line by lines, there's transfer, and then there's the summary of transfer to capital reserves and transfer from capital reserves. So does this, is everything captured in these two sheets, everything in and out? Okay, because that was one of my primary concerns, is understanding how the money's being transferred in and out of the reserves, because there is so much in and out, right? Okay, I just wanted to confirm that, thanks.
Anybody else has any questions for our directors here? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
This will be towards Greg. Thank you, Reeve. Could you explain, like, the status of the ramp, the famous ramp, please? Let everyone know. It's certainly catching the eye of a lot of people out in the public.
Certainly. Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer. I did talk with the Alan Evis, who's our architect and the project manager, and he also spoke with the contractor, and they're supposed to mobilize early this coming month, April, and we've given them to the middle of May to have the job completed. So I have to take them at their word at the present time, but otherwise I will be on top of them consistently going forward.
Is there a penalty at that point in time?
No, sir, there's not a penalty at that point, but I think that we both wish to get the job completed and move on.
And if I may,
Ed?
Reeve, the council chambers, I read that, like, I was wondering how many dollars we had into it so far, and it sounds like, what, 22 or 25,000?
Oh, 25,000.
Yeah, and then we've always, like last term, we were seeing a 200,000 to 26 or something like that figure, and that's something that I think a lot of us could stomach, and then all of a sudden, we're looking at 400 plus. I think when the dollar figure changes so much, I think council should re-examine it. And it's just, we'd be fools not to. You know, what happens if it was 600,000? Like, where do you draw the line? We can always live with a little bit of increase, I think. We can move forward, but when it doubles like that, I can't personally. And I'm just not sure what would the next step to that one would be, whether we make a motion for that and see how it goes.
Okay, so through you, your worship, to answer Councilor Palmer's question, I guess what you would want to do first is release the tender documents to see where they come back at. So council hasn't incurred any costs beyond what you've invested in your engineering and then your audio system that you were planning to transfer to that space. That tender documents are prepared. myself and the Director of Public Works did reach out to the engineers to see how you can cut costs on that project. They did say that they could itemize the tender as much as possible, so you'd have your base scope amount of what is absolutely required for that project to occur, right? So that's your demolition of that wall, your HVAC, that kind of thing. And then basically they would separate the rest out as provisionals of additional items that you as council can do over time if you want to feel the need to do them at all. So that $221,000 that was referenced in the, I guess, former Director of Public Works report, I believe she was basing that on estimates based on cost per square foot of other chambers that had just undertaken that work. So the only way you're going to know what that project costs is to tender it. And it's our understanding that basically the engineers are ready to tender it. They're just waiting for the budget to be adopted. And at that point, council can determine whether or not they want to award the work, right? So as you're aware, the tender results all come back to council. And if you feel that it's too high, you don't award it. If you feel it's adequate, you award it. And right, so if it's everything paid for through reserves, you only spend what you incur, right? So I guess that would be the piece there. I think so that you're not wasting the cost you've invested in engineering, I would recommend that you release the tender, see what it comes back at, and then make your decision. If that's from that is go back to the drawing board, then that's certainly an option that council can pursue, and then we would bring back a report on what that looks like. For example, to exit the lease agreement with the Wingham and District Hospital, as well as bring back some of that information in the investigations that the former Director of Public Works did on where you can locate and what the costs of that looks like. So I don't know if that kind of.
No, I think it's something that, I'm just concerned about pulling too much out of reserves. It's just, you can't reduce a budget by pulling out of reserves. That's just money in the bank, and we just can't touch. Reserves are for, something that happened like the dump thing that went last 3 or 4 years ago, the compactor, out of the blue, all right, $400,000, whatever. Things like that, and then stuff that's like the standpipe that's been planned. I just, once in a while, I can see us pulling out of the reserves to make something work, but, oh man, I'm just so reluctant to have that happen so often. So, yeah, okay, Clerk Lamb, I can see going further. One last question here for Greg. The plow truck for $185,000 times 2, right, next year again. Do we need it, seeing that we got one last year?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer. So the truck that we purchased for this year was to replace a 2003 model, and so that's a 19-year-old vehicle, and it's also a single axle vehicle. The one that we're proposing for 2023-24 is another tandem vehicle to replace a 2007 vehicle, so 16 years old. And the idea is to get away from or reduce our number of single axle vehicles as well, to make them tandem so they're more, we can haul more material with them. Right now we're paying third-party people to haul sand and salt for us, to truck snow away, and to help with road work. So a lot of these, the tandem vehicle will help certainly to do a lot of more in-house work, which will be reducing our costs eventually.
Okay.
Appreciate those remarks, seeing what the advantages are. I just never heard of that. So that's really good news, able to do that with vehicles. Any other questions here? Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, thanks, through you, Reeve. So, on the note of the trucks, so again, I just want to get clarity of the reserves. So, we finished payment on, the pumper truck this year, the last payment? I think there was a question on the last meeting about a payment that went out on that?
Yeah, through you, Reeve, to Councillor Wright. That was for the tandem truck, plow truck that was just delivered. So that was budgeted for the previous year.
Right, so we wrote a check this year, so
For
did that,
146, yes.
did
and
that
was the-
not come out of reserves then?
That was part of our actual internal borrowing. So when we did that reserve consolidation,
Okay,
right, with that whole program is being funded from that.
okay,
So the 184, 185 that's being budgeted this year will go into a reserve for next year. We'll put another 185, and that'll zero itself out as the truck gets delivered.
okay, but I don't, on page 52, I don't see a 185 number for transfer to capital reserves.
Chances are it'll get paid. There will be a portion of that to pay for, say, the part of the chassis. So whatever's remaining will get transferred into the reserves. So right now it's budgeted for 185. If it comes in at 170, 15 will get transferred into that reserve to carry over the additional funds
Oh,
required with next
So
year.
you actually have to pay as you go, you're not just setting money aside?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's identified for that project, but like in my world, in the finance, we call it a carryover, any unused funds. So we actually only spend what's required. right?
Okay.
If there's any surplus within that, if we taxed funds for a pickup truck and we didn't use all those funds for that pickup truck, it would go back into a fleet reserve. It's not just free money.
Okay,
That director would have to come back to council and request the use of those funds.
okay. No, thanks for your explanation, because that's one of the things I didn't understand, why I didn't see 185 going in there.
Because unfortunately, I won't know what that number is at the end of the year. Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else's, any questions? Counselor Palmer?
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Director Lutenberger, for the rec programs, the registration was 95,000 last year actual. I'm only going to talk actuals. And it was 95,000 again projected. I'm just wondering, like, we're supposed to be growing in usage, and I thought the number would be higher.
Through you, your worship, we were projecting an increase for the rec programs, and I'm just sorry, I'm trying to get to that page here. We were looking at an increase of, I believe it was, we were projecting about 407, I'm sorry, just a second. 104,000 was what we were projecting. When we had the meeting, when I met with Director Towns and the CAO and the Recreation Supervisor, it was felt we should be on the conservative side. Director Towns had felt that we should be on the conservative side of things, so it was left at the 95,000.
Okay. May I continue?
Go ahead.
Now, with the, like, I don't have an updated budgets now for the rec budgets because of that 185,000 increase. I have no idea, and I've got a whole list of where I saw discrepancies, so I'm going to assume that it's taken care of.
Through you, Reeve, to you, Councillor Palmer, the adjustments were within parks and arenas, and it was the impacts on that would have been wages, salaries, and benefits.
Parks and arenas.
And arenas.
What about the pool building salary? It went down. That doesn't make sense. And the fitness program went down. That one, like, they just stand out, and I'm wondering, oh, okay, that doesn't make sense at all.
Go ahead, Director Lukenberg.
Through you, your worship. So in terms of the salaries for the fitness center, going through this process again and realizing the concern of what was being budgeted for the fitness center, we went through and reallocated a portion of the wages. The fitness center is not strictly fitness center. They do a lot of administration for all of the programs and things. So they're looking after the administration on all the software administration, all the programs administration, as in entering the information into the software for, whether it's aquatics or it's for the rec programs, as well as doing a lot of the setup. It's the behind-the-scenes things that they do for the arenas and things. So that's taking a considerable amount of time. So we determined what that number was, reallocated that over to rec admin, so that it was a little bit truer of a picture as to what the wages are being used for. The other thing is they look after different facility components too, in terms of like if there's any sound system issues in the arena, they're looking after that as well. They also do some of the cleaning upstairs in the fitness center, instead of it being allocated to facilities staff. They were looking after that, so we have reallocated those in those areas for the
Just
salaries.
spreading out their wages then, okay?
More accurately reflecting where they belong.
Okay, that's better than spreading, okay.
Yes. And then in terms of the revenue and things, we are anticipating to be back up at our full operation this year. We're not dealing with COVID, and we are not anticipating any facility closures, because if you recall, last year we had that big roofing project and the Dectron replacement, and that resulted in facility closures as well. We're not anticipating that as well. So we're feeling very confident that we can increase our revenues significantly here and be at 2019, comparable to 2019 actuals. Again, through a meeting with the CAO and the Director of Finance, the Director suggested that we be on the conservative side.
Okay.
Okay.
Director Towns, that'd be the administration budget. I imagine it would be for you. The health and safety went from $6,300 to $21,000.
Yes, through you, Reeve, to Councillor Palmer. I think actually CAO Evans might have a better explanation. That has to do with updating the health and safety policy. I'm not sure the finer details on that.
I can, you can.
Yeah, so that's actually offset by modernization reserves. So if you recall, and when I was the health and safety coordinator, I guess, when we had the unconditional $532,000 from the provincial government, one of the modernization projects was an update to our health and safety policies. And so there was about 15,000 or so that was earmarked. That was earmarked for that project since we got our HR policies updated, the next step was health and safety. So that was intended to come from the modernization dollars from the province at the time. So, but it would be reflected in that updated.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the IT was taken care of. Town Hall Theater had no expenses.
No.
Okay, okay.
So anybody else has question? Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Yes, thanks, through you, Reeve. So just a clarification on the answer I got back on the administration salaries budget. So the answer back was it was for a full-time HR position and 1.5 time positions for continuation of record management positions. When did we first hire the HR person? I thought it was in 2021, was it not?
Through you, Reeve, I believe it was July of last year was the start date.
Okay.
So approximately half a year.
Okay, so that's half your wages. The records management positions, though, they were here for a full year last year, were they not?
I'll let the clerk Lamb speak to
Through
that
your
one.
worship, to answer Council Wright's question. So the two records management staff that we still have with us, one started in January of 2021, and the second one, I believe, started in August of 2021. And up until this point, they were funded through provincial government grants.
Okay, so it has to be funded out of salaries budget now?
Correct.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Councillor Palmer?
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. The works budget, miscellaneous revenue. I'm not sure if it was mentioned in, I just read it so fast, what you presented to us, or emailed us, so I'm not sure if it's there or not, but it went from 9,300 to 163,000. So that's the works budget, page 9, around 19.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer, that is the federal gas tax.
Okay.
So, and I mentioned this in previous council budget meetings. Previous to me being here, taking over in this position, the monies were actually just entered directly into a reserve account. So now it is actually revenue. You can call it deferred revenue, but at the end of the year, through our agreement, is it gets transferred, any unused funds get transferred into a reserve, and it is a conditional grant.
Yep.
So it's just, and I mentioned that, you just wanted to be shown on the books and within our budgets.
Okay.
Be open and transparent.
All right, two more little points.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Reeve, sick days in the same budget, 60 or 53,000. It just seems so high, and it's increased quite a bit from the previous, from last year.
Oh, it's under your salaries.
Through you, Reeve Heffer.
Yeah.
I'd have to come back with an answer for you for that. I'm not quite aware.
Speak up, please. I can't hear you.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer, I'd have to come back and answer that question. I don't have an answer for you at this present time.
Okay, okay. And for cemeteries, the inspections, they've gone from, in Wingham, 8,000 to 53,000, and Blythe, 4,500 to 31,000. Just wondering why so high?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer, I've included because it's inspections and contracts, I've included the grass cutting
okay.
contract and
Okay.
split it up between the two cemeteries.
Okay.
That's where it really helps, where you can come in and talk to them. I had the same question for our Public Works Director there this morning. It just, little things like that, just don't hesitate coming in to talk to them. They're more than willing to help us out. Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, so just on the grass cutting, so I received the answer to the question, and I'm fine with the answer I got. I think, it's fine for this year. I think, though, it is something we need to revisit for future years, so I just wanted to mention that, right? That it's, it's easy just to look at the impact of this year and on something like this and say, well, it's a wash this year, and it is, right? But I think in future years, right, like if we would have bought a mower this year, it would have lasted at least 5 years, right? And so then you don't have that future cost. All we're doing is paying someone else to cut the grass. So understand we're redeploying that resource to do other work internally, but there was really nothing explained of why there was, say, critical work not getting done or something like that. So, I don't want any changes to that item for this year's budget, but I just don't want to automatically assume we're going to continue on with that for next year. I think we'll want to readdress it next year and make a reevaluation on whether we want to continue with that or take it back internal again.
Makes sense. Councillor Palmer?
Thank you, Reeve. So if we're injecting another 185,000 into rec for wages, so that it would be bringing the budget to six-ish. Do you have a figure?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer, we're sitting at 7.09% at the moment, with that included.
Okay.
Okay, were there any questions from anybody else here? Getting a lot of answers here, really appreciated. CAO Evans sent us back a thing there with questions answered, and that was very good. Did Lonnie Councillor Wright had a hand.
Yeah, just another explanation on the museum deaccessioning. So is the expected cost 140,000? Is that correct?
Go ahead, Councillor Lutenberg.
Director Lutenberger.
I'm sorry,
I'm not a counselor yet.
sorry. Apologies.
I'm just joking, Your Worship. Through you, Your Worship. Yes, that's correct, because it is a long, lengthy process that requires going through every artifact that's there. So it is a 2-year process, and we had planned to start it last year, but unfortunately, due to workload, I wasn't able to get to it, which resulted in the cost being transferred to reserves at year end. So this year, we're just transferring the money out of reserves into operating to look after it. And then in 2024, the plan is to have it completed at that time. That will require funding to come forth from taxation in 2024.
Okay, understood. Yeah, I wasn't catching that it was a 2-year, so I thought we had to spend all that money this year, so I was wondering where the other roughly $70,000 was coming from. Okay, thanks for that.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarifying there. Any other questions here?
One last, for the increases that just happened, the additions to the budget that just occurred, is it going to be, like, do we have it? Like, I don't have it.
So,
Will it be,
sorry, through you, what exactly are you looking for, Councillor Palmer?
oh, I want to see the line by line, the budget.
I can forward that to you, modified.
Please do.
I can
Please
send
do.
it to everybody, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Great. Councillor Wright?
Yeah, so another question on capital reserves. So the one line, so this is again transferred to capital reserves. So there's $450,000 for the fire pumper truck. So that was my question. That's money's going to reserves. So where is it coming
Oh, is that,
from?
oops, sorry, through you, Reeve, just let me look, I think you're looking, all right, so there's a typo in there. So that should be SCBA. So now I know where you're getting your comment from.
Okay.
Your previous question, sorry. So that should be for the SCBA. Chances, sorry, through you, Reeve, to count.
Why are we transferring money to reserves for SCBA?
Chances are the product won't be delivered this year,
Okay,
right?
okay.
Thank you for
So
that.
we just want to earmark those funds.
Right.
So that's coming from taxation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Palmer?
Just a comment, Reeve. I'm finding that this exercise has been very good, but the difference has been that we've had the line by line. Because we have to, council has, this is our budget, council, and we have to get dirty. We have to get into it, and I felt like I had nothing to do with it up until this point, up until Friday. I had nothing to do with what the budget was looking like. And I know you're the finance director, but it's not all in your hands. It's in our hands too.
Yeah.
Because I need to feel that I had something to do with it to face the public. There's no way I'm going to rubber stamp something, no way. So I'm thankful for tonight that we've gotten this far anyways. I'm not sure what we're going to do with this motion yet, but it is certainly, I'm feeling more satisfied. I'll double it up.
Yes, I think a lot of our questions were come to fruition tonight, and really appreciate that, just looking at the different things. It sure was a lot of reading, that's for sure, and which is good, Oh, Councillor Wright, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, through you, Reeve. So I guess a question on, so this is on the funding for the council chambers and house and dam. So see that the West Stereo Fund is being used to fund part of that. I thought the West Stereo Fund was considered Wingham-only money, for lack of a more defined term. So just wondering why we're using, Wingham-only money on, general North Huron assets.
Go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Reeve, just in terms of, you're correct in terms of it's a dividend that we receive from Wisterio, and we would deposit into reserve account for Wingham-specific initiatives or projects. We have used that fund in the past when we disbanded the Wingham Police Service, for example, so very Wingham-specific. So in terms of the Bridge Dam project, it's identified as it's an asset that, if it wasn't for North Huron, to be an asset that Wingham would be dealing with. So the thought is that we would access those funds if needed for the House and Bridge Dam.
Go ahead, Councillor
But
Wright.
in the same budget, we're doing demolition of 2 Blythe assets, which would not be part of North Huron if there wasn't an amalgamation. Right? I don't think there's being proper consistency being applied here. Right? I mean, either each area is going to carry some of the weight of what happened prior to amalgamation or not, in my opinion, right? So I think we need to use other assets other than Wisterio to pay for those projects.
And through your review, that, in terms of, we can look at other reserves to move forward with that project, if that's the wish of council.
What do we do to confirm that that's the wish of council or not?
You would want to put it to a vote.
Okay, so should I make a motion then?
Yep. Yeah, I guess it depends if council wants to make that motion separately or make it as part of the larger motion. I'll leave that to the floor.
Well, I think it's just cleaner to make it a separate motion, so I'll make a motion then that staff look at using other reserve funds other than the Wisterio Fund to pay for the removal of the house and dam in the council chambers.
Just let our clerk get it written up.
So, Council Wright, if this is not what you're looking for, just let me know. But basically, your motion right now would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to investigate the use of other reserve funds other than the Wisterio funds for the House and Dam demolition project and the council chambers relocation project.
That's good, thank you.
So you need a seconder.
Second, somebody second it, please?
Sorry, Reeve, just for clarification, clerk, in terms of Wisterio funds were not earmarked for the council chambers project.
Okay, I will, if it's not involved in the council chambers, I thought it was, but it might have at one point maybe, but in a previous budget, but I'll accept that to be removed from the motion if the council chambers aren't involved.
So then your new motion would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to investigate the use of other reserve funds other than the Wisterio funds for the house and dam demolition project.
That's good, thank you.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it to get it on the table.
Okay, it's on the table now. We're want to have discussion on that. Go ahead. Questions? Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand up first.
Yeah, I mean, I just, if this is considered Wingham-only money, then it should be used for things that people of Wingham want to happen, right? A park upgrade, work on a road, maybe upgrading the town hall, whatever, right? And I understand there's a lot of history and I won't go into it, but I think everybody on the council should be knowledgeable of the fact that this is work that Wingham residents in general don't want to happen. So I think it's going to be a real, most Wingham residents want the dam to stay and that's what the wishes are, right? So to use Wingham residents' money against their wishes, I think it's not appropriate, right? That's why I wanted to bring it up, because Like I said, if something is going to benefit Wingham, that's fine. And if it's going to benefit Wingham more than the other areas, okay. But this is, the only reason this is happening, as far as I can tell, is the elimination of a liability. But that liability is equal across the entire municipality. So that's why I don't think it's appropriate to use Wingham-only money in this case.
Any other discussion from the floor? Go ahead, Councillor Van Heersen.
We have done floodplain mapping for the whole area around Wingham, and there are many areas outside of Wingham that will benefit, or no, only benefit from removal of the house and dam for flood safety and for building lots.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, go ahead, and then I'll go to Councillor Wright.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Yeah, you make good points, Councillor Wright. But I do see it is totally within the boundary, and as our CAO said, if it was no amalgamation, then you guys, Wingham would be dealing with it. Blythe, you mentioned, that is North Huron. And it's a hard one. It is really a hard one. I wouldn't know how I'm going to vote. Maybe use less of it or something. Maybe there's a way of just compromising so that there's still money left over for some other use within the Wingham boundary. And some of it goes towards the dam. And there's a great deal of people that want that dam out too. It's no good. It's rotten. So that's a whole new story, and I think we're past that. I hope we're past that, because it was just splitting everybody. But council did make a decision last term, so we're moving ahead. All right, just see how the motion, how the vote goes, I guess.
Yeah, like I'm hoping that the way the formula came in, that it's not going to take too much more, like it's at 1.0035, right? That's sort of what our amount was. I know we put it in for 1.3 for the extra, but I'm hoping that that amount is going to do it, make this job look really good. Whatnot. So was there any more discussion before we take it to vote?
What was the figure, Reeve? Like, what is the figure of that's going to be used? 800,000 or something, or?
Through you, Reeve, to Councillor Palmer, there's 1.3 is included in the budget. However, we're only going to physically transfer what actually gets spent, right? I don't have the details of the tender documents that came through, but I do know that that 1.3 included a small buffer for contingencies.
Yes. No, I mean the breakdown of how much of the West Ontario funding will there be?
Oh.
And then reserves.
Well, sorry, through
Remember?
your Reeve to Councillor Palmer, it was all coming through reserves. So there's funding available through OCEF. There was money from the House and Dam Reserve, and then there was money available in the West Ontario Dividends Reserve. So that number keeps growing, right? So
Do you know what that number is?
off the
or-
top of my head, my apologies, no, I do not.
Okay.
I got a lot of numbers running through my head right now.
I know you do. How old are you? Yeah, all right.
I believe it's around 308, 308
Okay.
for the West Ontario. We're very close to that, so. Okay, I'm going to have the motion read once more by Clerk Lamb, please.
So again, your motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to investigate the use of other reserve funds other than the West Ontario funds for the House and Dam demolition project. Your mover is Councillor Wright, and your seconder is Councillor Palmer.
Okay, may I see all those in favor? Defeated. Okay.
Reeve?
Yes, go ahead.
I believe we had a third vote
Yes.
come in here.
1, 2, 3.
3.
So tied, so 3, okay,
So, yeah.
I see
did
what
you
you're
do?
coming at, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, okay, I'm staying in favor of removing the Westario out. I feel that we may have some work with waterworks in town. I feel though Wingham dollars could be used for something in town that I'd like to see it more, sure, so I should talk. So my hand goes with that, then, sorry,
So just to clarify, the motion on the floor carried?
carried,
Okay.
sorry. Sorry, I didn't see Counselor Whitfield's hand, sorry.
I was late, sorry.
Okay,
You have Deputy Falcon.
okay, sorry, Deputy Reeve.
I'd like to make a motion that the Westario money be available to any project in North Huron, not just Wingham then. If it's deemed that it can be used, it's not going to be used for North Huron stuff, it must be available for something else then.
Okay, well, I'm just going by what, been told that it's meant for Wingham use, so did I read that wrong, CAO Evans? I'm sure, I thought I heard you say that.
The way the reserve, so just to clarify in terms of, we receive funds from Westario that are put into reserve account. And it's with respect to Westario Power, and Wingham residents are members of Westario Power. So Wingham ratepayers pay into or pay their hydro bill to Westario, and there's a dividend, and the dividend is divided among the shareholders, and we receive a dividend check back, and we put it into a reserve account. Historically, those funds have been set aside for Wingham-only initiatives or projects. As I explained earlier, in terms of with the Wingham Police Service, when the Wingham Police Service was disbanded, that was very Wingham-specific, and so the council authorized the use of those funds for the disbandment process. That's the way it's currently set up. And that's been an historical situation, I guess, that was in place prior to my arrival.
Okay,
So in terms of, I guess it's at the discretion of council. If you, that's currently how it's set up. That's not to say that has to continue like that into the future. That would be a decision of council.
Yeah, through you, Reeve, initially, and prior councils and the current one, have on the books that no taxpayer funding was going to go into the dam project. That was stated many, many times in the previous council and stated in this term of council. So does that mean that no taxation money will be put towards that now that the Westario money is not being used for that? Like, I'm just, you're gonna get at a stalemate here where there's gonna be no money left to do anything. I mean, I'm just curious, is what, did we just rescind a motion that we had already made? Like prior, like that was already written in the books by doing this? I'm just curious if we did.
I'm going to ask Clerk Lamb for some clarity there.
Through your worship, well, in regard to rescinding, I can't necessarily speak to that. I don't know. In regard to your first question of whether it would require taxation to fund that project, I guess I would defer to the Director of Finance to see whether it can be funded through other reserve options as passed in that previous motion. Because that would, basically, if it could be, that would be, I guess, the direction of council. You'd fund it through other reserves, and ultimately nothing would come from taxation, as you noted, Deputy Reeve Falconer.
So would it be possible for the other two wards to start up, open up a ward-specific account and have assets put into that account and used strictly for?
I guess I'd like to say, I'll just speak on my thoughts there. I just feel that I like to think that we're North Huron, but I see where you're coming from because I always judge that Westario. I always presumed that it was a Wingham thing there. And I think with that, I'd have to ask for a report to come back because if that would be possible, could I?
I'm just getting the feeling that that's not what they want to do, so.
Okay,
It's passed.
I have two here, go ahead.
Yeah,
Councillor
just
Wright.
a suggestion through you, Reeve. I believe a to-do that our Director of Finance still has was to actually make policies for the reserve accounts, right? So that's already planned. So, I mean, just a suggestion, understand the concerns that are being tabled. It's maybe not, you know, we don't have to decide it now on budget night,
No,
right?
no.
And there is plans in the works in order to put policies behind these funds so that there's clarity on what all these
Right.
different reverse funds are going to be used for, right?
Okay, Councillor Palmer, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. You know, this is a clear case of whose dividends are they? Like, Wingham is Westario, the other two wards are Hydro One, like, it's just the way it is. So I'm in full agreement of any of their dividends stay within the bounds of Wingham and used, you know, used for water, used for the water tower, used for sewer, used for roads, used for anything that is incumbent to them. So, yeah, that's how I don't think the other two wards don't deserve the use of that, and for us to start setting up our own little piggy bank for different reasons, I think, no, we're one, this is
go-
supposed to be North Huron.
Yeah, let's go together as one, and again, that will come to fruition when Deputy Director Towns comes with some reports that he's going to be carrying on. So a hand here, go ahead, sorry.
On the context of the, you know, not, as Councillor Wright said about not making a decision during budget talk, but we just made a motion and just had it passed, and we did make a decision. So it's already sent out to staff to do that motion, not to think about it, not to bring it back, but it's already been voted.
Okay.
So all I'm saying is that since that motion has already gone through, I think it should be put out there for, it's not, if it's, you want to call it a piggy bank, call it a piggy bank, but we need work done in our ward too, and if we can set money aside to get work that we want done, I'm glad to do it.
I'd like to have a report come forward, like I asked earlier, if I can bring that forward and go from there. This has been a very touchy subject all along, and okay. Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, just one more budget question. So I understand it's based on user pay, but the work we have going on with the standpipe and the running the sewer to Hutton Heights this year, I'm just surprised we didn't get, like, there isn't kind of if it's a separate pot of money, that's fine, but I'm surprised there isn't kind of a user pay budget presented every year along with the taxation budget, because, you know, I think council has a responsibility to have line of sight to all the money the municipality is spending, not just the stuff that is affecting taxation of the current year.
Through you, Reeve, to Councillor Wright, within your agenda package, there was draft user pay budgets for water and sewer, which included the capital.
And this is this one here, the large one?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so in the, I didn't actually see those large projects in here.
Close to the end there, I believe.
Near the bottom.
Closer to the end.
Okay, I stand corrected. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we bypassed Deputy Reeve. Did you want to bring a motion forward?
Nope.
About Westario? No. Councillor Palmer?
I'm curious, and I'm hoping, Clerk Lamb, this is procedure. As far as the way the motion reads, I won't accept. but adding one word, I will. So can you do that, or do you need a full amendment?
Which motion, sorry, Councillor
Oh,
Palmer?
sorry, this would be for the, number 5, for the draft.
Like that
Budget.
staff recommended motion that was
Yeah.
originally on there. So I guess that will need to be amended regardless. Director Towns noted the adjustments that are necessary to the salaries and benefits budget lines for parks and arenas. So we would have to amend that motion. And then basically, I guess, what's the word you'd like to add, I guess?
Well,
just
that's
for-
what I wanted to have included, is that it's an updated version.
Right, so basically, yeah, the staff recommended motion based on the changes required to those budgets would read something along the lines of that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts the 2023 budget in principle, subject to the necessary adjustment to the salaries and benefits budget lines for the Parks and Arenas budget, and further that council directs staff to proceed with scheduling the public meeting and presenting the budget for final adoption at the April 3rd, 2023 regular meeting, and further that the tax rate bylaw be brought forward for adoption once all tax rate information becomes available. So basically, for April 3rd in the package, and as well as the presentation materials for the statutory public meeting, it would have those updated budget lines to reflect those changes as noted by the Director of Finance. Yep, yeah, so if council's ready to put a motion on the floor regarding that, that would be the staff recommended motion, if there was movers and seconders.
Okay, you have a mover. Counselor Wright, seconder, Counselor Whitfield. Any other discussion before we go to vote? Seeing none, oh, go ahead.
Through you, Reeve, to our clerk there, does that 300,000 or so West Ontario have to be added to this motion? The adjustment on that?
Yeah, I defer to the Director of Finance on that one.
Yeah, through you, Reeve, to Councillor Whitfield. I think we may have to go back to the original motion, but just with the use of the reserves, and as for Reeve Falconer's comment about the no impact on the ratepayer, the no impact on the ratepayer was not worded within the motion. The use of the reserves was being presented by staff to not have the impact. That was the intent of the use of reserves for that project. So we may have to come back to you as staff after we investigate further on what the actual motions were towards that funding, if that makes any.
But I guess that being said, if it makes council comfortable, we can certainly add to that motion to make sure what we bring back on April 3rd does not use the West Ontario reserves for the house and dam demolition project, if that's what is desired. I guess I'll look to the mover and a seconder, so that's Councillor Wright and Councillor Whitfield.
Another question here.
Just have a question.
Yeah, question, yeah.
Okay,
Go
yeah,
ahead, Deputy Reeve.
Through your, was the West Ontario portion of the budget going to be used for? Was it allocated already
Through you, Reeve.
in your budget? Was
Through
it
you,
being
Reeve.
used for the dam?
That's how it was presented initially, was the use of that reserve.
So where's that money gonna come from now?
Well, staff's going to have to bring a report forward now for council's request, for
So
council's
that'll-
consideration,
so that'll
sorry.
stall that project. Since there's no more money for now.
Oh, I guess it would be contingent on whether, and again, not my area of expertise, it would be contingent on whether there are other reserves that would be suitable for that project that could be used. If not, you would just pass the motion subject to those changes, and then when we present the budget on April 3rd, it would include the change to pull from a different reserve.
I would suggest that, just for clarity, that again, staff worked to achieve the motion, which was passed. And if it's not achievable, right, they can present that information at the April 3rd meeting.
Mover and second, you all right with that? Who's the mover and second? Okay,
So just to clarify, you would, you're fine with it not in the motion right now?
Yes, I'm
knowing
fine
that
with
you
it
have
not in the motion. Yeah, because I think the other motion stands by itself.
Okay.
and there's one more question before we go to vote.
I need clarity, Counselor Wright. So you're saying if we're unable to, easily find that $300,000 without using taxpayer money, we'd allow the use of Westario this year and not again?
Yeah, so I think the motion was worded that staff investigate the use of using other
Other
reserve
funds.
funds.
But if it can't be attained, can we use Westario this time for the last time?
I understand the question. I don't think that's my decision to make.
We need to think about that, just like, we can't get into trouble, we can't use taxpayer money, the job has to get done. So, all along, we were using that Westario money, and I know I voted with you about that, and I like the idea, but if we just can't do it easily, I'm wondering if we can just let it happen this year and then really watch where things go next time and in the future.
I mean, I'm not opposed to that, right? But I mean, I don't necessarily want to give an easy out
No,
either,
that's fair.
right? So,
That's fair.
Yeah.
Clerk Lamb wants some clarification here.
Yeah, well, yeah, so I guess just based on what you passed, the motion was that the council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to investigate the use of other reserve funds other than the Westario funds for the house and dam demolition project. Staff will do that investigation, and like Councilor Wright said, we'll either come back with another option included in the April 3rd budget, or we'll basically make note of the fact that there was no other options available, knowing that I'm sure our finance staff will look at all available options. And so you'll get your answer one way or the other. If council finds, I guess, the funding approach proposed satisfactory, then you would pass that. If not, you could pass it subject to that change, right? That doesn't hinder you passing the budget in principle, which allows staff to start tendering projects and moving on that piece.
Go ahead, Councillor Van Henderson.
Thank you very much. I find that we are walking on a very slippery slope right here. We have other projects in the budget that are just for Wingham, but maybe for the tourists, maybe somebody from East Wamanos. We have money all over. We are supposed to be North Huron. We have money all over the place that is used for everybody. If we're going back to our ward system, that's fine. Let's put up a vote and we'll go back to the ward system and everybody takes care of themselves. We're using lots of money from East Wamanos for projects in Blythe and Wingham. That's fine. I'm just really worried about that $300,000 money from Westario that was just sitting there. I understand that people like it, but then they have to pay for the Cruikshank Park, for the pole replacement, or for something like that if they want it, and use the reserve somewhere else. I'm totally not in favor of anything we're going this way. Not at all. I'm not voting for this.
Thank you. No other comments? We'll put this to a vote then. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, isn't the motion on the table now to accept the budget?
Yes, so I will read back the motion so everyone is clear. So the motion that is being voted on right now is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts the 2023 budget in principle, subject to the necessary adjustment to the salaries and benefits budget lines for the parks and arenas budgets. And further, that council directs staff to proceed with scheduling the public meeting and presenting the budget for final adoption at the April 3rd, 2023 regular meeting. And further, that the tax rate bylaw be brought forward for adoption once all tax rate information becomes available. So that is your motion on the floor. Your mover is Councilor Wright, and your seconder is Councilor Whitfield.
Okay, all those in favor? Carried.
So your next item is agenda item 6, which is next meeting. So based on the motion you just adopted, there wouldn't be another budget meeting scheduled at this time. Instead, we will have the statutory public meeting at the April 3rd regular council meeting, where I guess council and the budget will, or council and the public, sorry, will receive a final version of the budget for council's consideration and adoption.
Okay, now moving on to number 7, confirmatory bylaw. We have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Whitfield. Councillor Wright. All in favor? Carried. Adjournment, that the council of the Township of North Huron agree that there being no further business before council, the meeting be hereby adjourned at
7:24 p.m.
7:24. A mover. Deputy Reeve. Councillor Palmer. All those in favor?